Carolyn and I do this talk every year, and we call it our dog and pony show. I'm Karen Lingenfelter-Carman, as she said. I'm with Mt.Diablo Adult Ed, but I've been in the field of disabilities for over 35 years, and it's my passion to work with individuals and help them achieve everything they want to achieve in life. And we're hoping that this evening we can provide you with some information and resources and also answer some of your questions. As June said, there'll be opportunities you'll see throughout the presentation where we will answer your questions. We're just asking everyone to please put them in the chat for us. And we have somebody that will be monitoring the chat, and we'll be giving Carolyn and I the questions so that we can answer them. And we are also, both of our emails are up on the presentation that you have. So if you have any questions that were not answered or not able to be answered this evening, because we have so many, please feel free to email either one of us. We'd be happy to help out.
Yeah, thank you, June, for the warm welcome. And thank you, Karen. I echo your sentiment. And I'm the transition specialist, as June mentioned, in the Tri-Valley, so for Pleasanton Adult and Career Education. And basically, I'm that warm handoff from high school or transition program into adult services. So thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Next slide, please. So I'm going to kind of go through an overview of what we're going to cover tonight. Now, we're going to be giving you a lot of information in not a very long amount of time. So you're going to have access to a resource list to a lot of the programs and types of things that we're talking about. We are going to be focusing primarily on Alameda and Contra Costa County. It's exciting, though. We know that some people are dialing into this or tuning in throughout the state of California, and I believe in the prior presentation, even throughout some of the other states and even out of the nation, which is exciting. But what's wonderful, what June said, this is an incredibly exciting time for individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities. The options are greater than they've ever been before. And it's exciting for me, having been in the field for 35 years, to see the progression and to see where we're at now. So the four things that we're going to cover is, we're going to cover transition to adult services and what that looks like, because it's very different than the IEP system, the K-12 system that your student or you are currently potentially currently enrolled in. We're also going to talk about pathways to employment. So if employment is a goal for your student or for you, Carolyn's going to give you an overview of some different programs that are set up there, wonderful resources and training resources that can lead to competitive and integrated employment. And I'm going to talk a little bit about day programs. And of course, now with our shelter in place and COVID, everybody's online and doing virtual, including all the day programs, but I will give you kind of a snapshot of what day programs can provide. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about post-secondary educational opportunities, and that's community college, it could be adult education, it could be 4-year. So there are choices available. It's challenging and overwhelming sometimes, right? At that graduation moment, or as you're preparing for what's next. Just like with anybody kind of trying to determine whether to go to college or get a job, that kind of thing. So hopefully some of these resources will be helpful, and the explanations will kind of help you get a greater understanding of what these programs are like. Next slide, please. So if you can, on your screen, you'll see alphabet soup. You're moving into the adult world, adult services world, of even more acronyms. And in the K-12 system, you have your IEP, Individualized Education Plan. And once your student graduates or completes and leaves the IEP or the K-12 system, whether they graduate with a diploma at 18 or they go through a transition program to age 22, what happens next is then they go into the adult world. In the adult world, it becomes an individualized program plan. And what's absolutely wonderful, and this is happening all over the country, and certainly not just in California, is the embracing person-centered thinking by doing a person-centered plan. And I'm going to give you an example. I did kind of snippet from what my person-centered plan would look like. Person-centered plans are amazing, and they're all about that individual's goals and dreams and what they need and what they want out of life and how they can get there and what services and supports they need to get there. And that is an integral part of the IPP. And what's not on here is the ISP, which I should have put on, which is the individualized service plan, which is what happens when you have an adult who is getting services through a regional center for getting adult services like a day program or a work activity program or something along those lines. So I'm going to give you a little more details as we go. Also, what will happen, and some parents and students are surprised by this, in the regional center system, case management changes. You go from, maybe if you're in a transition program, having a transition focused case manager, then to a new case manager who is an adult services case manager, and somebody that you're not familiar with or maybe you don't know. And what's key about regional center and adult services is there are so many wonderful services that can enable and support your student in transitioning to independent living, to supported living with additional supports, to have supported employment, paid internship programs, day programs. A lot of families say they don't access the regional center during the K-12, or they haven't accessed them for services or supports. However, in the adult world, they're a critical part of helping to provide the supports, the services, provide the vendors, if you will, because we're all vendorized programs, providing the money for paid internship training. They're just a wonderful, wonderful resource and the hub for many of the programs and services that you're going to hear about tonight. However, if you're out of California, you're not going to have a regional center. So those of you that are in California, we're very fortunate to have the Lanterman Act, which gives us this wonderful agency regional center under the Department of Developmental Services that provides this incredible and important funding for services to help your student become and live in the world in the way they want to and be the adult and get the services and supports they want in their community. Next slide, please. And by the way, I see some questions coming up. Please continue to put your questions in the chat, because as we move on, we're going to take a break after my part here, and then I'll be happy to answer questions as well as Carolyn. So my program, so I have a program called Life Skills and a program called TOPS that June mentioned in the introduction. And we have created what we call a MAP, which is kind of my action plan. So this is part of person-centered planning. So me, that's my name. What are my goals and dreams? Well, no surprise, since I've been in the field for 35 years, I'd like to retire. I'd like to travel, spend time with animals, spend more time with family, and to be a grandma at some point. I list out my interests, and these are the type of things and questions that we talk with our students about. We bring whoever's in their support team, their family, to come in and kind of create this beautiful picture of who is this person and what do they want in life. Because, you know, when you become an adult and you're out of school, it's like, oh my gosh, what do I do next? Well, knowing what you're interested in and knowing what works for you and doesn't work for you and what you hope to achieve can help programs help you, support you in those goals. Next slide, please. So things to know about me, you know, what are my career interests? What are my favorite activities? What are the important relationships in my life? Because all of these things are going to play a part in my determining what I want to do and supporting me. But what don't I like? I have to point this out because I don't like germs. And never have, but see, when COVID came out, I was way ahead of the game because I was already sanitizing all the time. So it just amped up my my germ phobia. My health is important to me. Time spent as a family, my mom's health, my son's health, advocating for the students that I work with, supporting my staff, living life, laughing, being outside. My best friend Duke is my dog, who's at my feet right now. And then what support and training do I need to be successful and work towards my goals? So yeah, stress management to keep me alive long enough to retire, because I have that workaholic thing happening. certainly money to retire, and hoping my son will soon get married and I can have grandbabies. So in this document, and this is a living, breathing document, and every program out there has their version of this document. And we take this information, and from there, we bring it to the IPP meeting. We do our individual service plan for that individual, which is a document that also kind of says, here's what's important to Karen. Here's what Karen wants to achieve. Here's her hopes and her dreams and her goals. And here are some things that our program can do to help her achieve those goals. And that becomes the individual service plan, and it's all tied into the goals and an IPP, because an IPP, instead of having educational goals, it may have more about transitioning to independent living, managing money, going to work. It may be going to community college or taking some sort of continuing education, taking adult education classes. So it will vary, but this is just the beginning of what person-centered planning is all about. And having family input or people that are significant to that individual provide support or input in this is critical also, because they're going to be the support team that also helps to make these wonderful things happen. Next slide, please. All right, questions. So I think who's my question? Rose?
It's me, Karen. So
Okay.
I have a couple of questions for you. Can students from San Ramon or Danville attend Pleasanton Adult and Career Ed?
Yes. One of the things we're going to talk about, what the beautiful part about adult education is, so adult schools are often part of a K-12 district. So I'm actually part of the Mt.Diablo Unified School District, but we're the adult education branch. However, unlike the K-12 side of things, where there are boundary limits and you have to live within a certain boundary to attend certain schools, in adult education, there's no boundary limits whatsoever. So we have students that come to our TOPS program, which serves adults with autism and prior diagnosis of Asperger's, from all over the Bay Area. In fact, we've had them come from Napa, because many of those students drive, San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley. And what's great, which I'll talk about in a little bit, we're just 3 blocks from Concord Bar, but anybody can attend an adult school. And both Carolyn and I are going to talk a lot about some of the programs that you can access at adult schools in terms of job training programs and certificate programs, because it's pretty amazing. It's an option in addition to or in lieu of a community college, depending on what your student desires.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question is, one of the challenges for youth with only an OHI diagnosis in their IEP and intellectual and developmental disability that is not one of the named categories accepted by RCEB is how to qualify for RCEB services.
Yes.
What tips do you have for qualifying for RCEB for a youth who is in the counseling enriched program, counseling enriched classroom at Seneca Center within a school district for 7 years?
Yeah, and I'm not regional center, although Rose, you could probably answer that. This is certainly better than I could, but I can say that I just know the primary diagnosis for regional center is pretty specific. I mean, many of the folks that we work with have dual diagnoses, and they may have ASD, autism spectrum disorder, and they may have obsessive compulsive disorder or anxiety disorder, some other or mental health disorders. But the primary, for one, the primary disability has to be an intellectual developmental disability. Is that correct, Rose?
Yes, so we have 4 qualifying criteria and then our 5th category. And then in addition to having one of those diagnoses, they also need to have significant impairments in, I think, 4 out of 7 areas that are listed on our website.
Right.
Okay, so in order to keep the question break short, do you have time for another one, or
one more? I think we'll do one more. By the way, I can just tell that this is being recorded. Someone asked if it's being recorded, and yes, this is being recorded, and you'll have access to that. Yeah, one more question would be great.
Okay. Do you have a sample of MAP look like for an adult who would have a moderate to severe disability, one who will not be independent?
So our map, my action plan is designed for the individuals that we serve in our program, which are mild to moderate. However, every program has a person-centered planning tool that they have created and designed it specifically to meet the needs of the individuals that they serve. So even if your son or daughter isn't necessarily going to be independent in the sense of live in their own apartment, possibly, if that's what you're thinking, or working, there are many, many degrees of independence that an individual can achieve as an adult. And so many of the programs that we're all part of, a larger group, serve individuals that are with moderate to severe disabilities, and they are working, and they are doing more skills, more things independently. One of my good friends, and I'm an advocate for her granddaughter, she has severe disability, but she's been getting some vocational training, and although she can only work for 3 minutes at a time and then needs a break for about 5, she's feeling good and being productive, and she's doing some work skills. She's learning. And so it really, depending on the program that you select when you're looking for programs, they will tailor it to the needs of the individuals there. This is supposed to not be, it's not a one-stop shop or one size fits all. It will look different for even the folks we serve, right, in terms of what they want to achieve. Because not everybody wants to live on their own, and not everybody wants to go to work, but they may have other goals, like they want to be part of, they love chess and they want to be in a public chess club in the community and participate with others, or they want to swim. It's not just about the highest level of independence that any of us can think of. It's really driven by what's most important to that individual, what makes, what motivates that person, what makes that individual feel good and feel happy. And that's what we want to, and to be a part of their community, whatever that looks like. It can look very differently. Sorry if that was over talking. I think we can go on now, Rose.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Karen. So let's talk about employment. If you would like to work, there are many systems in place to help you achieve this goal. But first, I would like to give you some background information. This information can be found on the Department of Labor Office of Disability Employment website, and it can also be found on the Department of Developmental Services website. There is a national movement called Employment First. This is a framework that is centered on the premise that all citizens, including individuals with significant disabilities, are capable of full participation in integrated employment and community life. In California, Governor Brown signed AB 1041 into law, establishing an Employment First policy in the Lanterman Developmental Disabilities Services Act. We also have a competitive integrated employment blueprint that is effective and has been effective from 2017 and goes until 2022. This blueprint is the combined effort of the California Department of Education, the California Department of Rehabilitation, and the California Department of Developmental Services. Major outcomes of this blueprint include improved coordination between state agencies providing employment services, additional support for individuals with developmental and intellectual disabilities to earn competitive wages in an integrated setting. Individuals will earn no less than minimum wage, and since last year, the state will no longer place or serve individuals in segregated work settings, including sheltered workshops. If you are in California and are a regional center consumer, this can be a good place to start. If you have exited high school or completed a transition program and are over 22 years of age, your employment goals should be discussed at your annual review. Otherwise, you can reach out to your case manager and let them know that you are interested in pathways to employment. The regional center can purchase services from employment service providers to help you train for work and gain that precious experience. The Department of Rehabilitation here in California, or the Vocational Rehabilitation Office in other states around the country, provides a range of services through their supported employment services. This could include job coaching to help you learn and do well at your job, money for transportation, or even to buy clothes or other necessary items that you would need to do your job. You know, an example of this would be like non-slip shoes if you're working in the kitchen, or any kind of assistive technology as well. So to become a DOR or a VOC rehab consumer, you need to complete their application process. You may have already started a partial file open when you participated in various employment programs at the high school or transition level, but you would need to open a full file once you exit these programs and the K-12 system. You can do this by yourself by visiting an office, but most times your supported employment provider will assist you with this step. We can move on to the next slide. Great. So one type of work training or employment training is the paid internship program. And here's a picture of the folks at our Pleasanton Adult and Career Education this year. And you can see we're all being safe with COVID. So we are participating in a project search model, and this was developed in Cincinnati and is now available around the world. The internship includes soft skill classes, on-the-job training, resume building and interview skills, as well as job development and follow along. Next slide, please. Here we have an example of individual internship model. And this is a really great opportunity for anyone who has identified a workplace that they would like to gain some experience, perhaps meet those pre-employment qualifications. Maybe they need to work somewhere for a year before they get considered for employment. So this is really another great way to gain those that employment experience. This is something that's usually worked out with the employer directly. Of course, a supported employment provider can also help with that. Individual model also comes along with job coaching, job training, and that type of thing. Okay, next slide, please. So remember, competitive integrated employment is the goal. So working in an integrated setting alongside individuals that are not disabled, making no less than minimum wage, and having the same opportunities for advancement. This can be achieved in a couple of ways, and here are some examples. So customized employment or job carving is creating a position with the individual in mind that matches their abilities and their skills along with the employer's needs. Supported employment, and also I should mention that customized employment does come along with job coaching. So there is training involved with customized employment. Supported employment provides job coaching and support to make sure that the individual is learning their job and being successful. Another type of employment, which is not mentioned on the slide, unfortunately, I apologize, is called micro-enterprise or self-employment. And this is when an individual puts their abilities, their skills and talents to work for themselves. Examples of micro-enterprise could be using artistic or culinary talents to create meaningful work and work opportunities to make money. Next slide, please. Okay, so at this point, we'll take a brief pause and answer any questions you might have at this time. And if there's no questions, we can just keep going along.
We have a couple of questions. So I'm gonna try to choose a couple. Does adult school need to be added to the IEP or the IPP?
So adult school, thinking about next steps, you would probably start to talk about it definitely in your transition plan. And then I think that would be added to your IPP. When you exit out of K-12 and you're starting to think about adult services, that's when you would add it.
What are the differences between supported employment and paid internship program?
That's a great question. So paid internship program, basically it is for a limited time. So it's a program with a start date and an end date. There's some clear objectives that you want to accomplish during that time. So if I'm talking about our internship program or Karen's internship program, it's about 9 months. So the interns will learn 3 different jobs over those 9 months. They're paid for the time that they're working. These are funds that come from the regional center. But it's more of a program, if that's the right word for it. It's more of a structured program, whereas supported employment, that would come after the internship program. So that's always the goal. So as you're finishing up your internship, we're doing job development, we're looking for placements, and then once that intern is able to transition into employment, that's when supported employment would kick in. And that means they would get job coaching, they would get follow along and support. The job coach would be coordinating with the employer just to make sure that everything's running smoothly. And typically, I would say job coaching could start out at 100%, but then the expectation is that the supports may fade as the individual becomes more adept at their work. But there are individuals that will continue to need support, and that's okay too, and that's available as well.
Thank you. Just a quick reminder to our participants, if you have a question, go ahead and type it in the chat, and then I'll ask it to our presenters. So I'm going to combine 2 questions. How are other employment programs such as Best Buddies the same or different to your program? And then are there open houses to observe different adult programs to see what is offered?
Yes, there are. And I believe Karen's going to talk about that in the next couple of slides. But as far as Best Buddies go, they are a fabulous, fabulous program. They're nationwide, and they might even be international. I'm not 100%. But their philosophy is that they match, it starts in the K-12, it starts in school, and they will match up an individual with a buddy or a mentor in the school system. And then that philosophy continues into adulthood as well. I believe they have 3 pillars of, their model is 3 pillars. So they do the job coaching, they place individuals, they support them in their job, but then there's also, I believe, a public speaking aspect to it. So, if there's an individual that they feel would be a great advocate or really loves public speaking and wants to talk about their program, then there's that component as well to Best Buddies. Okay, Best Buddies is global.
Oh, great. Yes, I see there. Someone posted that. Awesome.
Yeah, it's an amazing program, and I believe it's Travolta. Was it? No.
He did the Futures Explored, the film, right?
I thought there was someone famous that started Best Buddies.
Do you want to do one more question?
Sure.
Okay, this one's come up a couple times. How do you get into a paid internship? Who do you reach out to? Is that through the regional center or through DOR?
Yeah, so if you're a regional center consumer, that's definitely the first place to start. So as you're doing your annual review or as you're getting ready to exit high school, that would be a great time to start. I would recommend going to, and Karen will talk about this in a little while, but, doing your homework, researching all the different programs, talking to other parents, that's really the best place. And then as far as getting a referral or a purchase of service for an internship, that's really through your case manager.
And then can I add just one quick one? What age can you access paid internships?
Yeah, so basically, Regional Center will provide resources for any service that is not a generic resource, which means that the K-12 system, including transition, is considered a generic resource. So after an individual finishes a transition program at 22, then they can qualify for Regional Center funded programs. Or if they exit high school with a diploma, then they're eligible for Regional Center funded programs.
And the PIPs are through the funding through regional centers. Someone had said that they didn't get, Department of Rehab didn't mention or know anything about it. So start with the case manager for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Tag I'm it.
Hey.
So we're going to talk about day programs, and there are some center-based day programs and those that are community-based programs, meaning, so for instance, we're at Loma Vista Adult Center in Concord. So we have a center base, although we're out in the community every day. But a community-based program is essentially often meets in the community, or they pick up their participants and then they're out in the community, whether they're at the library or they're, going, learning shopping skills, things like that, going to the classes out in the community. So they're out in the community all the time. They're not going back to a center necessarily. There are some that combine that as well. So some of the focus that you see in a day program, some of the primary focuses are social and recreational skills. As part of being an adult, we have to have a balance in our lives between working and taking care of all the responsibilities we have, and then recreation and being able to access recreation in our community, whether it's at an adult school or a lot of folks take classes through their local city park and rec departments, things like that. Social skills are key. When Carolyn wraps it up at the end, she's going to talk about how important it is to work on developing social skills. It's a necessity for work, and it's a necessity for even just being able to go into a restaurant and eat and order your meal, that kind of thing. It's helpful to really focus in on that, and self-advocacy, I'm going to tie that in with that because it's critical. Self-advocacy is so important. And for those of you that have students that may be going to Department of Rehab or may be going, let's say, to community college, things will change in the sense that, unlike in K-12 where the parent is brought in and a part of everything, in those situations, whether it's a college or whatever, they want to talk to the individual that's wanting classes or wanting services. This doesn't mean they won't talk with the parent, but often to do that, the person who is an independent adult has to sign and say, it's okay for you to talk with my mom about my employment plan or that kind of thing. So it's very different in adult services. Community integration, access, becoming a part of the community. One part of person-centered planning, and I saw a question, I just want to make sure everyone knows, person-centered planning is for everyone. It's not just for self-determination. So it's for every individual in the United States that has a developmental or intellectual disability. And so part of that might be, becoming a part of my community more, participating in classes, getting support so that I can do more in my community. There's been some wonderful stories about individuals who have, we had a student who loved to knit, and she joined a knitting group at the adult ed, just a regular knitting class, and became just the most popular student in the class. Every time I walk in just to check in that class, they're laughing and having a great time. So it's about giving opportunities for individuals to experience their community, what's in their community. Life skills encompasses budgeting and cooking and cleaning and being able to do some of the basic skills you need, doing laundry, or parts of those things. It doesn't mean doing all of them. It could mean learning a part of the process. So maybe it would be challenging for them to start the washer, but maybe they could sort between colors and whites and play a part in their household and play a part in contributing to their household, but also in taking care of themselves through learning how to do laundry. Developing self-advocacy, as I said, is critical. And I'll talk about more how that fits in with community college, especially. Kind of behavioral, working through, getting the supports needed to anything that is challenging for an individual, that makes it difficult for them to reach their goals, to achieve their goals, to do what they want to do in life. Getting the supports necessary, going to the programs where they have that support so that that individual can grow and expand their skills and beyond, and be able to achieve what they want. Most programs, day programs, offer vocational training. It looks like volunteer work typically. So we're talking about, it's going to be volunteering, like our students volunteer at the Concord Police Department, the, Monument Crisis Center, right? And then Restore, and those are opportunities for our individual students to gain employment skills, right? Volunteer work is a great transition to employment. That's where we can really assess their skills and their ability to follow directions and follow steps, and what adaptations or accommodations they would need to be successful if they are going to want to get a job at some point. So those are the basic components of most of the day programs that are out there. Next slide. And by the way, there is, I'll say it now, and I was going to say it a little later, you're getting a reference list, a resource list, very comprehensive, and on that list you'll see day programs, you'll see a lot of information about some of the other things we've talked about, like paid internship programs, things like that. So it's a really wonderful list, and you'll have access to that. In fact, I think it was already in the chat. All right, so what do I do? Somebody asked this earlier. So are there open houses at day programs? No, not typically, but what happens is that every year, once a year throughout the county, so Alameda County has a very, very large transition fair, and it's usually in March. Contra Costa County has one. It's actually held at one of our Mt.Diablo school district buildings, and it's usually in the fall. And West Contra Costa County also does a transition fair, and at these fairs you will have all of the adult providers, the majority of us participate, and it's a little overwhelming, I'm sure, for your student and families to walk around, but it is everything from resources to help them transition to independent living or more independence in their own home, to day programs, work activity programs, Department of Rehab, regional centers there. It's a one-stop place to get a ton of resources, to get information about programs, and give you kind of a snapshot of, okay, so what do we want next? What fits based on what your goals and interests are, what best fits your students' needs. What are you looking for? What kind of support? Or if you have medical needs, what type of medical needs do you have? Your regional center case manager is where you begin the process, and you talk to them, and they will send packets to programs, and then you'll be able to often visit or tour. We do tours. Most programs set up tours and what I call visits, which is where an individual comes and spends a day or 2 or 3 to really see what it's really like to be in a program, and what the program's focused on, if it meets their needs. You can also have to look, beyond visiting day programs and trying to figure out what's the best fit. I can honestly say that many of the programs, and some of you probably heard this, have a wait list. We definitely need more programs throughout both counties. Our programs are all waitlisted at the adult school, and I know that's a scary proposition when you're looking at graduation, let's say in June, and what are my options? And but I can't encourage you enough to get out there a year prior to graduation, completion of transition program, and start touring with your son or daughter, and seeing what's out there, seeing what's available, seeing what might be a good fit, and getting on a wait list if that's a possibility, so that when you do get closer to that point. The last thing for me, what's really hard is I don't like having wait lists, because I don't like people graduating and then sitting home and not being able to pursue their goals. And So that can be really challenging. So I can't encourage you enough to get out there and talk to the case manager, get some referrals of programs that would maybe address your needs and interests, and then start looking. Transportation can be another challenge. One of the things I said, like adult schools, people can come from all over, and for most adult programs, whether they're day programs or work activity programs, people do come from all over the area depending on their needs and interests. The challenge is we have paratransit, the County Connection Link, Tri-Delta Transit, and Alameda County, can't remember now. What is it, Carolyn? Is it Wheels?
Wheels, yeah.
Yeah. So there are a variety of paratransit, and those are wonderful. You have to fill out an application, get a doctor to sign off on it, and they're door to door. Pick up.
Oh, Dial-A-Ride. Sorry.
Oh, Dial-A-Ride, sorry. Okay, pick up at home, take to program, and then at the end of the day, take home. And that's transportation that Regional Center can fund as well. But it is challenging sometimes, and Regional Center also is vendorized with different transportation companies that also can provide transportation to programs. And then, how accessible is the program if you have a son or daughter that wants to learn how to get to the program? Is it accessible by BART or bus? Public transportation in our county is, in any county, it's not as great as we all need it to be, but it's certainly accessible to get to some of the more, in-town localized locations. But it's really, really important that you venture into that and talk to the case manager about transportation as well. Next slide, please. Questions? We'll go to Rose for questions.
Okay, we got lots of questions. Sorry, it took a second to unmute.
No worries.
Okay. Do you have to get on a wait list for Pleasanton Adult and Career Ed?
That's a Carolyn question.
I would say, yeah, most years we've had a wait list. So I would say talk to your case manager and get your referral. If you're interested, you can connect with me and we can do a Zoom call or like a virtual visit. That's what I would recommend during COVID. But
Absolutely.
Yeah, we do have a wait list, yeah.
Yeah, and we are, we're virtual, and we've been having folks visit and do a virtual visit. It's certainly not the same, of course, as being there, but it's helpful, I think, to give a snapshot of what a class is like and who are the students in the class, that kind of thing.
What types of companies participate in these programs?
So are we talking about the paid internship programs?
I believe we're talking about paid internship or
Okay.
supported employment.
We have two paid internships. One is at the Embassy Suites in Walnut Creek, and one is at the Marriott in Walnut Creek. So those are hospitality industries. But there are many, any employer is a possibility for a paid internship program, any employer. And originally, Project Search started at a children's hospital in Chicago. Cincinnati, not Chicago, Cincinnati. So yeah, every type of industry where there's jobs and opportunities to learn and train on the job and then successfully get employed, it can be anywhere. I know we also work with Toolworks, which is another support employment agency, and they have people at PG&E, they have people at Pinterest that are doing paid internship programs. So any company, small, big or small, because you can do individual paid internships or you can do group. Group is usually for the larger industries like a hotel where you've got close to 200 employees and lots of different departments, so folks can rotate and gain different skills.
I'm just going to ask you two quick ones in rapid succession.
Okay.
How long can a person be in a paid internship? And then is there a regional list with descriptions of public adult school and career ed programs?
Okay.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Yeah. So, so there are funds. There are regional center funds for the paid internship program. So these are the wages for the interns. and the maximum is $10,400 per year. So it's basically whenever you start the internship until whenever you end the internship, it's $10,400 that are allotted for that program. So typically we see our interns go through 1 year, but there have been exceptions where we feel like an individual needs to do another round of internship just to really work on some more skills, and we just felt that it would be better. So we have seen 2 years. And then, sorry, Rose, what was the other question? The list?
Oh, sure. Is there a regional list with description of public adult school and career ed programs?
Yeah, so there's a fantastic resource page that's attached to this conference. I'm not sure if it's posted in the chat, but you will be able to find all the adult schools on that resource page. Otherwise, you can also research, you can find the website for the Mid-Alameda County Consortium if you're here in California. A lot of adult schools are part of a consortium. So that is, in our case, with our MAC, there's 8 adult schools and then 2 or 3 community colleges as well. So that's another resource, just to complicate things a little bit more.
Yeah.
Does conservatorship affect a person's eligibility to enter a program, such as a paid internship or a job?
No, the only thing I would say is when we're doing the onboarding paperwork for Department of Rehabilitation, we just need the conservator's signature when we're signing all the paperwork.
Yeah, we have,
and, you know,
we've had several folks.
Yeah, and we make sure that the communication goes both to the individual and to the conservator.
Right.
Just let me know when you're at time. How does employment impact benefits such as SSI and Medicare? And just, I'm going to tack on another one. Does paid internship wages impact SSI and Medicare benefits?
Yeah. Do you want to handle this one, Karen, or do you want me to?
Sure. I was going to say a great resource, HireAble.org, where many of us are a member of this organization. It's an organization of providers that support individuals in gaining competitive integrated employment in the community. And they are doing some benefits training. They received a grant, which is fabulous, and they're doing some benefits training because yes, it does impact SSI. The short answer is that in the end, the individual will still end up making more money because after the first, I think $75, it's for every $2 they make in their job, then $1 comes away from their SSI. And that will go all the way down. It doesn't mean they'll lose their Medi-Cal. If they're Medi-Cal, they will not lose that, but it's possible that they could work enough, not in the paid internship programs, because we're typically not, our paid internship programs usually pay 20 hours a week, maybe at minimum wage. And because there's also education happening on these sites with a teacher that they're having class about. So they're maybe getting paid for 20 to 22 hours a week. But yes, and one of the things I can't say enough is that you need to send your pay stubs to Social Security. And also do not be alarmed because like anything, they're going to be behind. It's going to be a couple months behind by the time they get it and they process it and adjust the Social Security accordingly. But yes, that does happen. However, in a paid internship program, there's also a form that the Supported Employment Agency can sign that talks about they're getting 100% support. And I believe that minimizes SSI. Is that correct, Rose? I'm going to ask you on that.
I'm sorry.
Are you familiar with that?
100% listening to you because I was reading the chat.
No worries, it's okay. But I can't tell you enough to go to check out the website for HireAble. It's one word, HireAble.org. And
yeah,
it's
if I could jump in, Karen, too, the other website is DB101. That's another great website for, you know, they have calculators and.
Yes. It can be a little complicated sometimes working the calculator. We've all kind of played with it, but it does give you a snapshot of what it'll look like and how much money you can make and how that's going to offset if you can, you know, use the calculator. But yeah, it's Disability Benefits 101, DB 101. Thank you, Carolyn.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. Oh,
Yeah.
shall we move on? Okay. Okay, post-secondary options and comparing. So we're going to talk about community colleges, universities, adult education schools, and trade schools and art schools. So these are, if you're looking, if you know, we've kind of talked about the employment options. So if you're looking for the educational options, what's next? I'm going to go through some details. If next slide, please. I'm going to kind of break it down for you. And it's not, you know, none of these, you know, are depending on the individual and what they want and desire and what their skills and abilities are is going to be the one. These are just some really wonderful options. So if you've ever gone to any presentations that David Haggerty from DVC has done about community college and transitioning, one of the things is they are absolutely mandated, as are adult schools, by law under the ADA to provide support services. Some of the departments are called DSS, some of them are called DSPS, but they are disability support services. And so individuals that want to take classes or non-credit classes, which they now have a lot more non-credit classes available than they used to previously. If they're a class, it's kind of like your high school diploma. So to get a high school diploma, you can get a lot of accommodations, whether you need additional time or a decreased workload in classes or what have you. But modifying the curriculum, they cannot modify the curriculum, because in a community college, the curriculum states whether you're working towards your AA degree, if you're doing it for credit, I'm talking, or if you're doing it, if you're trying to get a certificate, they can't modify. So the curriculum remains the same, but they can provide the accommodations that they determine you would be eligible for when you meet with the DSS counselor with an IEP, preferably if you have a prior IEP, so that they can look at that and use that kind of as a guide, and also to verify that the individual has a disability that qualifies them for services. And some of the things that the DSS or DSPS departments can provide is priority registration, which is great. Lots of counseling, academic, career, and disability counseling, note-taking, tutoring, extended test time, audio books, recording lectures. We've had many of our students do that. Interpreters, closed captioning services, all types of different media services. They have a specialized lab. I know at DVC and at LMC, Los Medanos, and I believe Contra Costa College as well. I work in tandem with community colleges because Carolyn referenced that we're part of consortium. And several years ago, the funding from the state became connected to community colleges for adult education. So I sit on the steering committee for our county, and we're partnered with Los Medanos, Contra Costa College, and DVC, Diablo Valley College, and the adult schools. So we work in tandem trying to help students get supports they need. We provide concurrent enrollment. So they may be taking a class at DVC and they're in my TOPS class getting some college support on time management, organization skills, things like that. And we work with the counselors and stuff. So there's a lot of that happening with adult schools throughout the state because of the mandate and the CAPE, what we call California Adult Education Programs. So if your son or daughter starts at an adult school and then wants to go to community college, there's often an easier transition to help them make that happen through what they learn at the adult school, and then the transition specialists that most adult schools have that work directly with community college and link the two. Next slide, please. So there's special independent living skills programs at colleges and universities, and their campus inclusion experience. So you are living there, you're living in a dorm. Taft is down in the Bakersfield area. I've had several students that have gone to Taft for 2 years. We had a young woman who went to Taft, completed the program, came back with her driver's license, and did the paid internship program at the Marriott and got a full-time benefited job at the Marriott at the completion of her paid internship. Wayfinders at Fresno State, it's the same idea. College living experiences down in Monterey. They're typically 2-year programs. They provide, like I said, dorm experience, and they not only, yes, they're taking some college classes, but they're really also gaining work experience. They're gaining independent living skills. It's kind of an all-inclusive focus. And Regional Center does, works with these programs. So these are programs that you can talk with the Regional Center case manager about funding. Not necessarily the apartment rent, if there is a program like CIP in Berkeley, which is in the next group for individuals with autism spectrum disorder, they will pay for the program CIP, not the apartment cost, right? The living cost, if you will. Cal State East Bay, we have had several students transition from TOPS to the College Link program there. It's a wonderful support program for individuals on the spectrum. They have a lot more, there's mentoring that goes on campus of other individuals that have been successful at the college that are on the spectrum. And we just had 2 students transition last year over to Cal State East Bay. They're working with their DSS department. They're in the College Link program and getting support through support groups. Of course, everything's virtual now, right? So classes are virtual, support's virtual during the shelter in place. And then college to career, we've had several students complete the college to career program at College of Alameda. If you live in that area, that's a great voc training program. It's specific to prepare them to go out into the world, to take classes and learn skills, to help them go to work, to find a job, to complete training. And we just had a young man who completed their program this past year, and he now has a full-time job, but he lives over in West Contra Costa County, over in that area. Next slide, please. All right, adult education programs. So prior to 2008, many adult schools in the state of California had programs that were adults with disabilities programs. In 2008, the funding fell out, and we lost our attendance funding, and like K-12 has, so everything kind of stopped, and many of the schools, adult schools in the Bay Area and even in the southern part of the state and northern part, had to drop their adults with disabilities programs, which is really unfortunate. But some of them have survived and are continuing to grow and strive and provide services. Castro Valley Adult has, in career education, they have a large program called the Strides program. They serve close to 100 individuals, and they do employment, they have a job developer, they do independent living skills. Our life skills program is very similar to the Strides program in terms of the focus. Fremont Adult and continuing education, they have the Knowles Center, which is also a fairly large program, and they, under the direction of their new director, they're reaching out and doing a lot more with employment focus and transitioning individuals to employment successfully. I'm with Mt.Diablo Adult Ed, and we have the 2 paid internship programs at the hotels. We are virtual right now because the hotels are at less than 10% occupancy. So there's no room for us to come in and work. And for many of our individuals, they don't feel safe doing that at this time, understandably. Our TOPS program, which started back in 2008, and it's designed to help individuals who are wanting to transition to college, to employment, maybe to get a driver's license, kind of transitioning on to achieve goals. It's more of a short-term program where they get supports and skills to move on to the next phase in their life. Our life skills program is a day program, and we provide all the different topics that I covered earlier about social skills, communication skills, community access, and vocational training. We do have a job developer that works with our programs, all of our programs, to help individuals go be successful in doing employment on an individualized basis. We have the PIP programs, but we also have individualized job development. And then we have the On Track program, and that program is for individuals who have suffered an acquired brain injury. A lot of folks in that program were working and in college and maybe had an auto accident or a drug overdose or something like that that caused a brain injury. Oakland Adult is really, I think, the first adult school in this Bay Area to do Project Search, and they do that at the Alameda County Courthouse. For years, I think they were also partnering with Children's Hospital when they were doing the training there as an instructor, but they're still continuing to do the project search through Oakland Adult. Carolyn is with Pleasanton Adult and Career Education, and they just launched into this amazing Adults with Disabilities program several years ago. Actually 3 or 4, I think, since I met Carolyn, and they're growing and doing some really wonderful training programs within their own school district, PIP programs, which is awesome. And they do life skills and career readiness. And then West Contra Costa Adult does independent living skills, occupation, work skills. Most of those teachers from that adult school go to programs in the area, day programs, work activity programs, and provide these classes. There's no geographic limitations, again, which is wonderful for enrollment at any adult school throughout the Bay Area. So make sure to access that resource list. It has a comprehensive list of adult schools in Alameda and adult schools in Contra Costa as well. Next slide, please. All right, some basic adult school programs. So these are programs that most adult schools throughout the state offer. Adult basic education is reading, writing, technology, math skills, kind of to help people prepare for college. A lot of people will come because they want to pass a test, maybe with the county, to be eligible to promote, and or just you have a personal goal that you want to improve your skills. It's a starting point for individuals who have, some basic reading and writing skills that they want to develop further. Most adult schools have a high school diploma program where you get a legitimate high school diploma at the adult school. We have had some students from our transition program, which just happens to be on the same campus that our adult school is at, have gone from the transition program, had enough units that they could go into our high school diploma program. With their IEP, there's a program specialist that our school district provides to make sure the IEP is carried out, and then that have gotten their high school diploma. But there's also the GED and the high set. The high set's become more of a popular equivalency because the GED, for many people, feel it's more difficult. I'm not familiar with either, but I know that we've had some students in our TOPS program complete their high set and their GED and walk and graduate. Adult schools that have high school diploma programs actually graduate. There's a ceremony and it's, an official document, that diploma or that GED. Some of us have satellite offices for America's Job Centers of California. Some of you may know them as one-stop centers, and they were developed years ago through a federal mandate for any individual within that county can go and get free services, get free workshops on resume preparation, interview skills, do a lot of career assessments. And we have a satellite office at our campus that individuals can come and access. And our America's Job Center is still out on Port Chicago, but they're throughout the state. And they used to be, like I said, the one-stop. Now they're called America's Job Centers of California. So you may be able to access that at your local adult school. Most have lifelong education still, even though funding stopped for that back in 2008. However, many of them are just fee-based, and those are wonderful opportunities for students, for you to take a class with your son or daughter, cooking, dancing, painting. They're wonderful classes taught by credentialed teachers, fitness classes. We have taken students and we've gone and take ceramic classes at our Pleasant Hill Center where they have some ceramic classes. So it's really, really wonderful to access those lifelong education classes, and you can do it with your student and provide them the support they need while you're there in the class if you feel that's a need, or they can take it individually. Next slide, please. Okay, Carolyn, tag.
Great, thanks, Karen. So along with all the myriad of programs that Karen just talked about in adult ed, we also offer career and tech ed. And this is really kind of the nuts and bolts of learning hard skills. Upon successfully completing these programs, you will get a certificate, and then you can actually transition right to employment from these programs. So you can see here a whole bunch of different types of training, everything from EMT training, certified nursing assistant. Here in Pleasanton, we have a huge apprenticeship program. So carpenters, firefighters, you know, we've got a whole bunch of different programs. So that is also part of adult ed. And know that if there's a career that you know that you want to go into and you just need that training to get there, adult ed would be a really great option for that if they offer your program. Next slide, please. So on that same vein, we've got the trade schools and the art schools. So similar to career and tech ed, you know, you can get a certificate upon successfully completing these programs. I do want to point out that Creative Growth Art Center and NIAD are both specifically for regional center consumers. If you're interested in art, you really loved working with different mediums, then this is a great option for you. And they also offer the possibility to sell your artwork as well. So that could be a great option for micro enterprise or self-employment. Next slide, please. So we'll pause quickly to take some questions.
Okay, good. We got lots.
Yeah.
I know, it's like drinking out of a fire hose.
Yeah, I can definitely say there was an error on, and I apologize, and I guess it says AAA versus AA degree. Yes, it's AA.
Do you suggest that a high school graduate do adult ed as a transition to community college?
Depends on their skills. So if they have their high school diploma and they have good study skills and time management and organization skills, because as we know in community college, everything amps up and it's a faster pace. And you don't have, I mean, one of the things you don't have is that teacher saying, come on now, you guys, don't forget, this is due. So you have to, if your student is able to do their work and stay on top of it and keep up, then they could transition with support from the DSS departments. And they also have some mentors on their campus. I think DVC does, individuals that have disabilities that have been successful that mentor. However, if it takes a lot of prompting from you and there's a lot of challenges around organization and study skills and follow through and turning stuff in, then it might be helpful for them to take, you know, an ABE class and focus on study skills, because that's also something that they will do in, or if they're an individual that might have ASD and want to check into our TOPS program, because that's also what we do. We help provide a lot of support around those, you know, organization and time management skills that are necessary for success.
Can someone who's not a client of the regional center attend the adult school?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, all the programs that we discussed are minus the list that says adults with disabilities programs. All the other programs, career tech ed, there's English as a second language, there's parent education, lots of lifelong learning classes. Any individual in the community can attend, absolutely. They're for the community at large.
Does the Project Search program accept residents outside of Pleasanton?
Yes. Yeah. So basically, there's no kind of geographic catchment area for adult schools. So you could be from another county, another city. Yeah.
As long as you can manage the transportation,
Yes.
right? That is the challenge. We're in Walnut Creek. We have individuals coming from Brentwood, Oakley. Thankfully, the Embassy Suites is at the Pleasant Hill BART station across the street. But even then, if you've got to use paratransit to get there, it can be challenging. I mean, transportation is always, you know, a challenge, and that you need to take into consideration when you're looking at programs and access.
Yeah, we've had interns from Hayward, San Lorenzo, and Oakland was the furthest one.
Oops, sorry, I just lost my spot. will the dorm experience programs take conserved students?
That's a good question.
I have no idea. Unfortunately, I'm not affiliated with them. I can't imagine. I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I'm not going to even speculate. That's something you would have to, go online with the list that we've given you and reach out and contact the programs and ask them.
Yeah, and they're usually at the transition fairs, so you can talk
Yes.
to the folks from Wayfinders or I don't know if Taft is there, but Wayfinders is usually there at the transition fair.
Yes, right.
Okay. Can students who are in the mild severe program attend college, or do they need to be a diploma track?
They don't need to have a diploma to attend a community college. There are classes often through the DSS departments even that are specifically work on independent living skills that are to help serve individuals with disabilities that may not be on that academic track per se. So I think there is going to be a level of reading and writing skills that are going to be necessary to participate in that, but certainly not anybody can go to a community college. You don't have to have a high school diploma to take classes.
What does it take to convert a certificate of completion to a high school diploma?
It takes units. You have to have the units. If you don't have the units, I mean, you can certainly take units at an adult school for a year or so if you need to, but if you don't have the units already, then what we recommend is you go for the high set or the GED.
And there is support available, if you need a little bit of support with that.
Yeah. And adult schools are mandated. We're under the ADA as well, of course, and we do accommodation plans for our students in career tech ed. We serve actually a lot of folks from Department of Rehab that are served by Department of Rehab, and we do accommodation plans. We have staff that do that, and I do them periodically for our career tech ed department.
When would be an appropriate time to connect with a disability support center if a student is looking to apply for community college? Should they apply for admission first and then contact the department, or vice versa?
I think.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
I was just going to say, it would be good to get in touch with the department. You need to basically have all your ducks in a row. So you need all your documentation, you need your IEP. They might ask for diagnosis or a letter from your doctor. So I would definitely reach out to the office and see there are some requirements that they need. And then typically what happens is there's an appointment with a counselor, and basically they walk you through what the steps are for that.
At DVC, I know, I'm not sure about the other two, but they'll tell you in order for them to serve or work with you, you have to be enrolled, do the paperwork portion, but reaching out to them and finding out what they need in their documents, like Carolyn was saying, so that you have everything, so that as soon as that happens, then you can get your services.
And they might even support you to enroll. I know at Las Positas, they have.
Oh, that's
yeah.
We go on
to the
yeah, we just have one more slide.
We have one more slide.
Okay. Oh, can I really quick follow up on the certificate conversion question? Do they need a transcript from the high school?
For community college?
If they're wanting to transition their certificate of completion to a diploma and they need to add the units that Karen was just answering.
I'm sorry, I'm reading chat at the same time.
Yeah.
So do they need to provide their transcripts for the adult school?
If they want to complete their
Yes.
GED, yeah, you would have to show the unit.
Yeah, they need transcripts regardless, and they'll ask for them. They'll get them from the school. They'll get permission, and then after that, they'll help make a determination. There's always an initial orientation at adult schools where they do an assessment test, just to see where the basic reading, writing, and math skills are, just to make sure they're at the level that we can serve them. in our adult ed classes and or for a high school diploma or high set or GED.
Hey, thank you.
Should we have Carolyn do the last slide, and then
Yeah.
I'll take us into the
Thanks,
the
Karen.
poll and such. Mhm.
So the next slide is really just for the folks that are thinking about transitioning. You're in high school or you're in a transition program. How can I start preparing for my future right now? You can start working on your person-centered plan. This is a living document. So, you know, Karen kind of walked you through what hers looks like. So you can start thinking about that, what your goals, your hopes and dreams are, what you like, your likes and dislikes. So start identifying that. Definitely work on those communication and social skills. Those will take you very far. Work on your self-advocacy. So that means, you know, asking for things for yourself, you know, depending on how much independence you have at home, really requesting that self-advocacy. So ordering for yourself at restaurants, making phone calls, doing research, you know, that's really all part of it. And those are great skills to learn, and you'll keep learning those skills, but it's good to start now. Time management, you know, very important. And then travel training. I know right now it's a little bit tricky with COVID, but you could definitely do some virtual traveling, you know, pick a point on the map, you know, maybe in your county or the next city over, and you map out how you're going to get there. So bus, BART, you know, train, who knows, but this is something that you can start working on. And that's it. So thank you so much.